play fake to Walker. Sam rolls out near side. Throw is made. Touchdown! Seahawks! Jackson Smith-Njigba from 12 yards. Second and 4 from his own 34. McMahon throws intercepted again. It's Tupu. He's inside the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5. Touchdown Seahawks. 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns for the Seahawks. A 34-yard return. Lofa Tupu, welcome to the NFL, baby. 35, he's on the run, Lynch. 40, pushes him at 35. Look at him go. He's down to 20, 15. He could go. He is going to go. Touchdown Seahawks. Oh my word! A 67-yard run!
Welcome in everyone to another episode of the Hawks Eye Live podcast. And tonight you get a double whammy. It is a preview show and it is also State of the Hawks with Mookie Alexander back in the house to join me tonight. Mookie, how's it going, man?
It's going good for me. Not so much the Mariners. We are live, of course, but the Mariners' bats are dead. I tell you what, if the Seahawks are to end their terrible home form, it appears that the only solution is for the Mariners to literally lose the middle 3 of this series, all at T-Mobile Park. Again, 2 innings left. So if you see me kind of looking here, I've got my eye on the game. But man, it's so Mariners for this to be happening. 2-0 up, and then when nobody expected you to even win game 1, and now these last 2-3 games, the offense has just disappeared, and then the pitching staff just imploded in games 3 and 4.
That's been kind of the story. Is game 2, game 1 and game 2, no one kind of really expected that sort of outcome, and I think either one of those games, and then to come back up 2-0 and have this bit of a hiccup, I'd say it is at this point. And Mookie, like you were saying off air, it's like this offense for the Mariners right now is kind of this boom or bust. You're either hitting home runs and that's about it. Other than that, your bats are dead. So it'll be interesting to see going back to Toronto. If the score stays as it currently is and they go back to Toronto down a game, how does this change, the outlook for that team going forward in the pitching and with the offense? But let's talk about our Seahawks here, Mookie. Haven't had you on for a little bit, but first things first, what is your confidence level heading into Monday night versus Houston?
I'm fairly confident that they will, as in whether they win the game or just confidence in the way that the team has been up to this point.
Either or. Let's go with confidence as the team itself heading into the game, like where they are currently in this season.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in how they'll perform in this game. I think it's going to be a very tough game, but it's one that I think that they are capable of winning. And as far as the season has gone, I'm confident that the Seahawks have a bare minimum good football team. And to be a good football team is in a playoff spot, or at least competing for a playoff spot come the end of the year. I think that based on the metrics and everything, that they are a very good, if not great team that we're seeing, and they have room to get better. So, the DVOA metric, they've been amazing. They're first in DVOA right now on through the FTN fantasy metric, but I don't hold that stat in high regard this early in the season. I know that there was the history of the top 4 and 2 teams that were top 5 in offense, defense, and special teams DVOA. Most of them make it to the Super Bowl. That sounds really exciting, and I'd love for the Seahawks to be in that category. But I think after week 9 or 10, I'll start to get a better feel for all right, is this really, really real? And as far as I'm concerned, I think that the Seahawks are at least going to be challenging for the division. I think that the NFC West is a 3-team race already. I am immediately wiping out Arizona. They're screwed. I don't care if Brissett keeps playing reasonably well. That team is lost, and I have a feeling Jonathan Gannon has become an unexpected hot seat candidate. So it's down to the 49ers, Rams, and Seahawks, and we know the injuries the 49ers have suffered to their key defensive players. Even if Purdy comes back and Ayuk comes back, I don't know if the offense is going to be so amazing that it can offset the people that they've lost on defense. And then the Rams, I know Nakua is out this weekend, and the Rams haven't looked impressive all that much lately, but they're still the Rams. They should still be a good team. This is going to be a heck of a battle. To me, the season starts for the Seahawks in week 10 or 11, whichever game the Rams game is. That becomes the biggest game of the season to me, because I expect them to win at least 2 out of these next 3 games, meaning Houston, Washington, Arizona. I think they should be going minimum 2-1 in those games. After that Rams game in Los Angeles, in Inglewood, that is going to be the real litmus test. Last year's game in Inglewood was playing out the season, meaningless Week 18 game. This year's game in Inglewood could mean a whole lot for not just Seattle in the NFC West, but sorry, I'm not going to be, I'm going to be a bit realistic here. The NFC is so wide open that the 1 seed is suddenly not an impossibility to think about. There's only one team right now that has more wins than Seattle in the NFC, and that's Tampa Bay. That's it. So again, wide open conference, so a lot of football left to be played. But the way that the Seahawks have looked thus far, I see no reason why we can't dream about them being a legitimate contender for the 1 seed.
Well, for me currently, Mookie, I have them as the 3rd seed right now, in my opinion. Like if I'm or 3rd overall team, I should say right now in the NFC. I know some people say, well, the Rams. And no, I think the Seahawks have a better team as a whole than the Rams do when they're fully healthy. That's, I think you look at the Ravens game. The Rams were relatively-ish healthy, and they almost lost that game to a Cooper Rush-led Ravens team. And we'll see how they look at Puka Nacua has already been ruled out to, what you were talking about. So can Devontae Adams, because the one thing I will say about Matthew Stafford is he is very much I love my one receiver more than anybody else in the whole world. Like if you look at his history, like it was Calvin Johnson, and then it was Cooper Kupp, and now it's Puka Nacua. Like if you're not his guy that he trusts more than anything, you're not going to see a lot of the volume of that passing attack. And so it'll be interesting to see how he handles, now all of a sudden what happens when Puka comes back, and if he's out for a bit of time and he develops some sort of chemistry with Devontae Adams, how does that offense look? Now, what I'll ask you is let's get into this. Let's get into the state of the Hawks here, Mookie, a little bit, and where Seattle kind of stands here. But the other thing I wanted to ask you is what's the one thing that's truly defined this team for you so far in the season?
Darnold and JSN. And I know we'll talk about JSN a little later on, but to me, and I said this on many occasions, and I stand by it, the Seahawks ceiling is determined by the offense and really the passing offense. If Darnold had a serious regression, Seattle would be 2-4 right now. Instead, he's playing arguably better than he did in Minnesota up to this point. Could Jackson Smith-Njigba step up and be a true number 1 receiver? The answer so far is an emphatic yes. Could the offensive line hold up? No, they haven't been brilliant, but they've been good enough, at least in pass protection. And frankly, I'd rather they be good in pass protection than run blocking if I had to choose. I'd love for them to be a better running team than they have been, but if the pass pro couldn't hold up, then we'd have some serious issues on our hands. So I think that the way that Darnold and JSN have connected with each other is like the 2018 year with Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, where they had like a perfect passer rating when Russ threw to him. But this is that same version on steroids, because JSN has a legit shot to win Offensive Player of the Year. Is he going to win it? I don't think so. They probably have to sustain this on a weekly basis. And I suspect that there will be some games where he's not Superman, and Darnold isn't Superman, and some of these amazing passes will be incomplete or the occasional pick. But when have you ever said about any Seahawks receiver, as good as Seattle has been with receivers over the decades, basically since Largent, when have you ever said in a post-Largent world, man, this Seattle Seahawks receiver has a case to be the best in the league now, or among the top 5 in the league? Nobody's as good as Jefferson or well, I'll tell you what, let me pause for 1 second because it is 2-2. We've got a tie game home run. I can see who hit it. Was it? No, it was Big Dumper. Big Dumper.
Oh, Kyle Raleigh.
Now that is legendary stuff. So I'm thinking JSN's a legend in the making. Big Dumper might already be a legend. I mean, the sculpting of a statue is going to be really interesting to see down the line.
You know what? It's really funny right now when I look at Seattle. So sorry everyone. This is gonna kind of deviate just a little bit because I want to kind of touch on what you're touching on here, Mookie, with talking about JSN, Cal Raleigh obviously hitting the home run. Isn't it interesting the kind of main head focal guys right now in Seattle sports? JSN, Sam Darnold, Cal Raleigh, like they all kind of have a similar just way about them. They're not these huger than life stars. They're guys that just work hard at their craft and, are all about the team and everything like that. It's such a interesting dynamic going on in the Seattle sports area right now and what's going on there with the team successes that you're having with the Mariners and the Seahawks. It's very different than what it's been in the past. We haven't seen this for a while.
Yeah, because those old Mariners teams with Griffey and A-Rod, certainly more outsized personalities. And then the Seahawks had the Legion of Boom. So, yeah, there are different types of ways that you can have successful athletes and star. These seem like more reserved in terms of their even their off the field stuff. But yes, getting back to the Seahawks, Darnold to JSN, that has been the defining thing because it has really carried this offense. And if I could be a tiny bit of a downer, but I think I'm being a realist here. If anything happens to JSN, and I specifically mean JSN, not Darnold, this passing offense could collapse because I don't think Kupp, as good as he's been lately, can step into being a wide receiver one again. So this offense, passing offense, is heavily reliant on JSN, but you know what? It's working really damn well.
So my follow-up to that and what the thing that you talked about just now that defined it for you. For me, this team, the biggest defining thing for me about this team so far, and I would love to jump in on the Sam Darnold thing because he's been in JSN, they've been absolutely phenomenal. It is like the bonding and brotherhood of this team. The way this team is connected to me is such a defining trait where we haven't seen this in Seattle for over a decade, I feel. Like there wasn't this, like once the LOB fell apart, you didn't have the same level of bonding. Like, yeah, certain guys on the team, Bobby and KJ and certain pieces, but it always felt like fractions of the team were bonded, but not the whole team. This team truly feels like a brotherhood again, which is something we haven't seen since those early LOB days. And you can see the difference in this way the team takes ownership from head coach down when they have a bad loss. Like, not that Pete never didn't take ownership for things, but Pete always had a way of wording things. Mike McDonald coming out and flat saying, I'm taking this one, this is on me, was a really refreshing take. And I know Mark Schlereth talked about it too on his show with 710 with Bob and Dave Weinman there. And he said the same thing. Like hearing a head coach own that is like just resonates through your locker room. It makes everyone work harder, and then when you do call out players, like the thing that we heard about Kobe Bryant getting called out, Kobe doesn't pout. Kobe doesn't get all pissy about it. No, Kobe responds in the Jaguars game and has a really good, solid bounce back game. So that for me is what the biggest defining thing right now with this team is. Outside of what you talked about, I think these are the two main catalysts for this team right now is you have this super tight-knit, connected group, and you have a quarterback and receiver that are playing unbelievable football. And it's just catapulting this team to another tier that I don't think we thought they were going to get to this quickly.
Mm-hmm. And again, this isn't to say anything about Pete negatively. It's just it's different. Not saying it's demonstrably better, but it's a different but still seemingly effective way of coaching. And you bring up what McDonald is being hard on himself at times or owning up to his own mistakes. I think that Tampa Bay game was pretty revealing in the things he said as far as why the defense struggled as badly as it did. And it was struggling on either side of the Reek injury. So that was a pretty important thing. And that they've been able to clean that up pretty quickly. So when there have been lulls, when there have been defensive struggles, McDonald has been really good at nipping it in the bud. So when he had this run defense struggles last year, he couldn't fix it overnight. He just got there. But he probably went to John and said, I need new linebackers. He got new linebackers. Run defense improved significantly. Roy Robertson, Harris added to the rotation. You don't bring back Rayshon Jenkins into the starting lineup. You let Kobe basically take the reins as is. And the run defense improves and the defense as a whole improves. So with this year, you can tell when he's not satisfied with somebody, even if he's not directly calling them out. Tyrese Knight not having a great start to the season. Suddenly Drake Thomas enters the picture, and I'm not going to argue Drake Thomas is the next KJ Wright or anything, but Drake Thomas has had a couple of key moments on defense in ways that Knight really hasn't been able to. You're not going to have 11 All-Pros. It's just not going to happen. But Thomas seems to fit that, fit what Mike McDonald wants. And frankly, Thomas was claimed by Pete Carroll. So they liked something in him, and he was a surprise wave by the Raiders. And now going from special teams into the starting lineup. And McDonald is kind of progressing Drake into that next step where I go, man, if Seattle has something wrong with the two starting linebackers, Seattle's in trouble. But instead, Knight's not been performing well. It's time to put Thomas in. So it's his form of accountability without just directly calling people out. In other words, Seattle is not acting or performing like the Miami Dolphins and doing open finger pointing at everybody and then having to walk it back the next day.
Our coach also doesn't wear capris that barely go down to his bottom of his legs.
Yes, our Mike McD is better than their Mike McD.
Yeah, he dresses.
And I'm pretty sure our Mike McD will be employed through the rest of the season. I'm not sure about the other one.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point on that. But yeah, no, it's definitely something, interesting. But I'll ask the chat here for you guys. Here's a question. What part of this team gives you guys the most confidence right now that they're going to be a team come the end of the season that's fighting for the division and possibly being one of the top NFC contenders? So I'll let you guys put that away in the chat there, and we'll get back to that. But any updates in the Mariners game, Mookie? Anything at all happening?
2 on with nobody out because Naylor just got walked. So I am begging them to actually, and again, it looks like John Schneider. The John Schneider we're rooting against right now is pulling the reliever. So he didn't relieve anything, and he'll be relieved of his duties. So this is the chance after the break for Seattle I'm begging them, please get a hit with contact, and it doesn't have to be a homer. A base hit would be enough for them to take the lead, probably.
Yeah. So let's talk about the man that you brought up here, JSN's breakout. And as I put it, the dog has arrived. And JSN to me is a dog, man. Like the guy there's no question. He's a receiver 1. And I don't think there's a question now. He's a top 5 NFL receiver this season. And I think he's going to be in that top 10 conversation going forward. Like there's nothing this guy has proven. Like the only thing I could think you could say to JSN he can't do is maybe he's not winning a fade one-on-one jump ball, but I wouldn't even put that out of the realm that he's not savvy enough to time it right and get it. But my question is, has JSN, well, I guess he has, but what makes JSN, in your opinion, Mookie, different than past receiver 1s in Seattle, aka Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf? Like, is there something JSN does that just puts him in a little bit of a different conversation right now?
I think he's a bit of a combination of the best of Baldwin and most of the best of Lockett. So, like Tyler Lockett at his best was much faster than Smith and Jigba, but I see the footwork and the route running of Doug Baldwin in Smith and Jigba. I see the hands of both Baldwin and Lockett, and he's just and he's also proven to be a very good scramble drill quarterback, scramble drill receiver rather, for Geno previously, and then for Sam Darnold this season. And I believe that JSN, as you said, is going to be a top 5, top 10 conversation for a while. So I think the closest comparison for him right now to another top receiver would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. 2 guys who are not known as, they don't have that 4.2, 4.3 straight line speed. And wasn't JSN injured when he ran that 40? Like he was coming off the hamstring or whatever. So he might be a little bit faster than what his 40 time was. But even still, he's a perfect example of you don't need somebody with Xavier Worthy's 40-yard dash to be a deep threat. And that to me is the biggest revelation, because even in college, his depth of target wasn't great. He was more of an intermediate and behind the line of scrimmage and a little bit beyond the line of scrimmage option. Now, maybe some of that is because they had Olave, they had Garrett Wilson. Those are guys who can also win down the field. So Smith and Jigba just ate up underneath, and opposing teams were screwed because you want to get beaten by JSN underneath, or do you want to get beaten over the top by Olave or Wilson? So we're seeing the development of JSN so rapidly. Like we remember in year 1, Shane Waldron pretty much had him running routes maxing out at 3 yards. How many bubble screens did we see just go nowhere? And then Ryan Grubb, to his credit, did a better job getting a lot out of JSN to get a 100-catch season, but he still wasn't getting a ton of explosive plays. Randy just got hit by a pitch, so we got bases loaded with nobody out. All right. Anyway, what was I going to say? This year with Clint Kubiak, we're seeing JSN feast off of play action. He can beat one-on-one coverage. He can win. We know he's great in zone against zone defenses, but the way he's winning in man coverage too is really impressing me. Again, it's not always about speed when it comes to separation, because Cooper Kupp is the wide receiver 2 on this team, but he was wide receiver 1 once upon a time in the Rams. Nobody has ever bragged about Cooper Kupp having blazing speed. But you know what he wins? Smart, savvy, and using his footwork, using his route running knowledge, using that chemistry with Matthew Stafford over the years and Jared Goff before him. That's kind of what we're seeing with JSN right now. So if we accept that the top 2 receivers in this league are probably Jefferson and Chase. JSN is right in that mix as far as kind of like the best of the rest. And he might be near the top of that best of the rest very soon, because think about what he's doing with Sam Darnold not exactly throwing the ball a lot. They're near the bottom of the league in attempts. He's got 57 targets, says JSN, on the season. If you gave him more targets, he would really be pushing for some, forget Seahawks franchise records, because he's on pace to break all of those in this season. On pace to break his own receiving, his catches record, on pace to break DK's receiving yards record. Really, touchdowns is the only place that's going to be tough, because he's got, 3 on the season? But still, he could be challenging some NFL records. Like, if he keeps this up and Darnold keeps this up, that receiving record by Calvin Johnson could actually be in jeopardy. And part of it is because of the 17th game, but screw it. Are we going to discount 16-game records because they used to have a 14-game season? So, yeah, JSN has been absolutely amazing, and Seattle needed that because Kupp has filled his role well, but we know he's got enough limitations just age-wise for everybody to realize that he's not going to be Rams Cooper Kupp anymore, or at least 2021 version. Horton has not been consistently involved in the offense, and then everybody else below them in the depth charts is not really contributing a whole lot. So JSN developing the way he has totally changed, to me, the ceiling of this offense.
It's so interesting. For me, when I look at, Mookie, what are you looking at? What occurred?
Oh my God. A Geno Suarez grand slam. 6-2.
Wow.
Oh my God. And that's his second of the day. His second home run, that is. Unbelievable.
I will say this, X-Wing, it's okay that you put caps in for that particular moment in the chat. I will allow it. It is okay. That is amazing. So clearly I just need to say stupid things about the Mariners at the beginning of a show, and their bats all of a sudden start to work again. So I swear I'll keep doing that, everyone. When I'm on live shows that the Mariners are playing, I'll just insinuate they can't hit the ball out of the park anymore, and we'll be fine, apparently.
Boom or bust? Well, the boom is happening right now. I mean, they were bust for a little bit, but they picked a good time to reboom their offense.
Yeah, reboom their bats. But to the point there, Mookie, about JSN and this passing game and kind of the other weapons, and whether JSN is in that category, I think to your point, it's Jefferson, it's Chase. I think it's then JSN, and then I think it's everybody else after that in that group. I think JSN is above that, just everybody else. Because when I think of some of the names in that group, we're talking about Garrett Wilson. We're talking about, Puka Nacua is maybe the only other one. I think you could go the 2 elite guys that are on their own are Chase and Jefferson. And then I'd say the next 2, I guess you'd call them the 2A and B, are Puka Nacua and JSN. Like, those 2 are the other 2 top receivers, in my opinion, in the NFL right now. And the thing that has just blown me away with JSN this year is he runs routes and sits in zones like he's been playing in the NFL for 7 or 8 seasons with a quarterback he has never played with before, that he's had one off season with. I cannot wait to see what him and Sam Darnold are able to do in another year. And in another year, when they keep getting to work together and build that rapport, and we get to see that grow. Because I remember times watching Hasselbeck and Bobby Ingram, and it was like, how did he know Bobby was going to be there? And Bobby was right. Or even Russ and Doug. There were points where you knew Russ was just going to find Doug, and Doug was going to pop into the right zone at the right time. And you're just kind of like, okay, like, you can't coach that. You can't teach it. It's just understanding of where you need to be at what time. And that's one of the things. And to the point on Cooper Kupp, I think Cooper Kupp has done a phenomenal job of coming in and doing exactly what we needed as a receiver too. 3 catches the last game, 3 targets, 2 catches, 40 yards, a touchdown. Like, yeah, I'd like to see that number maybe go up a little bit, because JSN was 8 for 162, which isn't something you can bank on necessarily every week. But I think you could have a situation where if there's a game where JSN only gets 80 yards, there could be a conversation that was the game that Cooper Kupp got 96 yards or something. But the one biggest thing that still worries me a little bit about this passing offense is it almost is too JSN reliant at points, and they need to get Arroyo and Barner more involved. Like, everyone was talking about Barner's game this past week. I'm like, okay, yeah, 71 yards, but that one, 61 of that came on 1 catch near the end of the game. The rest of it, he had 2 catches for 10 yards. Like, we need more kind of just at least spreading out of that at, still feed JSN, but don't make it so teams literally know to go there and we don't actually have the answer because we haven't worked on that enough. But the last question I'll ask you here, Mookie, on the JSN thing is, how much has his growth affected Seattle's bottom part of this depth chart? Now that you have JSN sitting here as your one and he's your one and it's proven, what do you think happens with the rest of Seattle's receiving core? We'll go outside of Torrey Horton and Cooper Kupp. So like the Bobos, the Derek Youngs, the flipping of the random last guy at the practice squad spot, whether that's Cody White or who else. Like, do you think Seattle views this now as a group they still need to add to coming forward in the draft?
Next season, yes. This season, no. Unless there's like a great deal to be made for a wide receiver 4. I'll tell you what, as somebody who's been a bit of a calm down on Derek Young because the fan base has hyped him up so much, he really is showing out this year as a kick returner, bare minimum. We know what he can do as a special teams guy when he's covering kicks and covering punts. But he's had a couple of catches and nice ones too, like that one against Tampa Bay. So he's getting a little bit more involved in the offense. Bobo is almost an afterthought in the offense. And I tell you what, the need to have this above the rim guy has been, they already have Kupp on the team. So I think Kupp can still win those. And the way that Darnold is throwing, there's a reduced need to have a Bobo type involved in the passing game. But Bobo still has value right now as a run blocker, as somebody who can, still contribute on special teams as a maybe a gunner, or what, for him, not a gunner, but still somebody who can make tackles on special teams. But still, I think wide receiver is an area they can still build upon, because you got to think long term about how many years Kupp will have. But now they don't have to draft a wide receiver early, right, anytime soon. They've got a wide receiver 1 right now, and he is unquestioned. And maybe they have their wide receiver 2 already on the depth chart with Torrey Horton. But after that, it is kind of a 3 deep receiver group at the moment. And you know what? I'm not too bothered about it because they're running so much 12 personnel. So Cody White, he's been a great story to finally make a 53-man roster, but they're just moving him around back and forth between practice squad and wide. We kind of know his ceiling at this point. If you've been in the league this long and you can't get above wide receiver 5, then good on you for staying around the NFL, but I'm not expecting huge upward mobility for Cody White. But when you have somebody like JSN breaking out the way he has, it reduces one of your needs or puts a possible need further down the order for next year's draft. And that's how I see it with the way that Smith and Jigba's performed. So doesn't mean they should sit on their hands at wide receiver next year, especially knowing Kupp's age. And we got to see a little bit more from Torrey Horton, even though I'm very bullish on him. But now you've got a strong base. You've got that wide receiver 1 who you can depend on. And if you want a hot take from me, I think that if JSN keeps this up, in 3 seasons, he'll have already been a better receiver than DK was for Seattle. It's not to trash DK as, oh man, this dude sucks or whatever, because DK put up a lot of very productive seasons those first few years, and more with Russ than with Geno. But this trajectory could make JSN a legit Hall of Fame level talent, which I don't think DK will ever be. So that's where my delineation is with JSN versus DK. And even with guys like Doug and Tyler, I love them, but they're not Hall of Famers. JSN, the way he's performing, he's on a perennial Pro Bowl, All-Pro level track.
Yeah, no, he definitely is someone where I look at JSN and go, the future's extremely bright. So, Chad, again, I'm going to ask you guys to jump in here. Tell me what you think JSN's stat line will be this Monday night versus the Houston Texans. How many yards? How many touchdowns? What does it look like for JSN? So I want to see, and closest to that, I will give a shout out to on the Monday night post-game show. I'll make sure to keep track of all your guys' comments for that. And whoever gets closest to that will get a massive shout out from me on the show for predicting that. But Mookie, let's move over to the one thing on this offense that isn't exactly clicking, this ground attack. And as it says, the run game is still searching. If I could put up the good old dial tone internet, that's what I kind of feel like with this with this run game right now. It's like dial up internet. It connects, but it ain't fast, and it isn't something that's consistent. So, Mookie, what's holding this running game back the most, in your opinion?
I think they need to find better ways to optimize the backs they have on the roster. And by them, by the backs on the roster, I mean just Walker and Charbonnet, because Holani doesn't play. This is one of those times where I do wonder what would have happened if Kenny McIntosh didn't get hurt, because I think he actually would have had some sort of role in Kubiak's offense. And by the way, 1 out away from being 3-2 up in this series. So just Munoz just got to close it out, and that 8th inning might be remembered forever in the history of Seattle sports. But this running game, again, I don't think they should be running Charbonnet outside so much. He is not. He's not as elusive as Walker, and he's not a guy who can make something out of nothing while running east-west. So with Walker, I feel like they should be actually running more inside stuff with Walker. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but I feel like he's actually been more effective there. It's unbelievable that they ran as well as they did against Tampa Bay and that front, dealing with Hall and Gaines and Vita Vea. They just didn't run it a lot because they didn't have a whole lot of plays, and the passing game was being tremendous. But against Jacksonville, it was an ugly, ugly display.
Yeah.
I do think they need Robbie Oots back. Now, it's not like Oots being in the game has meant that the running game has been amazing and he's not a cure-all. But you're seeing fewer I formation sets without him and with Brady Russell in the game. There might have been a couple of plays where they've had Derek or Bobo as the fullback of sorts. And game over, everybody. Mariners win. Mariners win. 1 win away from the World Series for the very first time. They'd never been even within 1 win of the World Series. So they got to close it out in Toronto just like they did in 2022 in the Wild Card Series. And I really want them to close it out in Game 6, because Game 7 would be Monday night and clash right towards the start of the Seahawks game. So every reason to root for a Game 6 victory there. But as far as the running game goes, I'd like to see them run more dual blocks. It feels like they haven't done enough of that. And I don't really put the blame on Kubiak as much as I do put the blame on execution. And specifically, Jalen Sundell has not been good really in pass pro, but especially in run plays.
I agree with you.
And then Abe Lucas, I believe, is not at his best. I think Lucas and Bradford, and I don't expect Bradford to be struggling with run blocking compared to his pass pro, but it feels like he's had some issues there.
So it's really funny you bring that up, Mookie, because I went back and I've been watching a lot of the All-22. Obviously, I do the Hawks Film Lab breakdowns with Dan, and I just love watching the All-22 film when I'm bored, to be brutally honest with you. It's one of my funnest things to do, and that's the coach side of me coming out. But Bradford has almost done this flip-flop like a coin, where we couldn't get him to pass pro to save his life. He was lost in space, like just had nowhere idea of how to pass pro and help out or do anything, to now where he's actually a very good actual, like, getting in the right spot, being there, being an above average pass protecting guard, but his run blocking's disappeared. It's like it's flipped on itself, where it's like now we see this guard that can't run block, and it's like that was supposed to be your thing, dude. We were just trying to add a quality to you, not flip what you did well and take all of that and put it into the pass pro. So no, I agree, and I'll eat some crow on this too. I've been one of Jalen Sundell's biggest advocates, that, for the last few years, and I thought Sundell was really gonna come in. And one thing I think a big struggle point right now for this offensive line, and what we didn't see in the preseason, I think this is where it kind of gave us this fool's gold a little bit. In the preseason, teams run base defense. There's not stunts. There's not late second adjustments on a defensive front. And as the season goes on, and as you get more and more and teams start scouting you, they start seeing what you're struggling with, and they're going to start throwing more things at you. What I think we're seeing now is a very young offensive line not understanding how to target in the wide zone scheme. And then to your point on Abe Lucas, to your point, Pete Carroll wasn't a big zone runner during the last tenure. He was much more the gap power. Like, they tried it under Shane Waldron, but when Solari was here, they were gap power. Pete likes going downhill. That's what he's always liked. That's why they had Chris Carson. To switch to wide zone, it takes a bit to get the guys all to understand where they're targeting, depending on the front, depending on the angles, where the techs are. So, like, when I say techs, you got to know that if you're going wide zone right and you've got a 3 tech to your right and you're the center, that's you and the guard. And then one of you, once you get control, is now working second level to that backer. Well, where's that backer? Are you cutting off the backside will, or are you trying to get out in front of the mic who's now bolting across. And it's how you open up the backside cutback lanes. And so I don't think it's an issue of our running backs having problems. I think it's an issue of this young offensive line, especially on the interior, because if you're running zone, your interior line needs to be excellent. They need to be able to communicate and work as a group. And I think Zabel is doing that phenomenally. I said this on a show a few weeks ago. I'll probably say it tonight, right now, and I'll say it again. I have a weird feeling if they do a reevaluation on this bye week, we could see Oluwatimi playing center against the Washington Commanders. That's just my hot take, is I think that's the easier change than trying to change Bradford out at guard, because you don't really have anything behind Bradford where you go, hey, yeah, we've got, Cable who's ready to take that step and start. And they don't seem that eager to bring Christian Haynes off the IR right now to put him in. Maybe they do that during the bye week. Who knows? But I think there's a chance Olu gets put in to see if that can spark this run game, if it still sputters against Houston.
Yeah, because don't forget that McDonald, when he said Sundell was a starter, I think he was the only position where he said starter for now. So he didn't just give Sundell the unquestioned starting job. And if Olu didn't get hurt, I think it's very possible that Oluwatimi would have just won it, because he didn't really do anything to merit losing it based on the practice.
He got injured.
We read, and then the practices we saw with in person. So I believe that's for Sundell. He's just been getting outmatched too often at the point of attack.
Yes.
And that's, the two holds he committed were so obvious.
Oh, gosh. Even Mark Schlereth on the broadcast was like, well, if you're going to do it, yeah, do it big.
Yeah,
and,
so anybody
that's a point.
Yeah.
To look back at the guards that have played within this scheme, Mark Schlereth being one of them in that Denver Broncos 90s run. The guards in Denver were elite level guards. The center has been a crucial elite point for these offenses to work. I just think Sundell is showing why he's a UDFA versus why he wasn't a 5th round, 6th round, 7th round pick in some regards. And I think there's a chance Sundell could still be good. I just think right now, to your point, he is overmatched. Do they try and go with Olu? We'll see. I think that's something like Mike said it, I think this weekend is either his show or one of his early press conferences, where he said, we're constantly reevaluating, especially when it came to the run game. We're constantly evaluating. I think that's a sign that they're not happy with it. And, I think this whole thing about who's better between Charbonnet and Walker conversation that keeps going on, until we get consistent blocking, you can't really have that conversation, because Charbonnet is getting a lot of the grunt work in some of the run games where he's running into way more loaded boxes. Not saying that Ken isn't, but then Ken's getting a little bit more of those open areas because they're on first down and, long distances where they're not necessarily stacking the box as much. I think both running backs, I think the rotation between both backs is actually quite good the last couple of weeks.
With Charbonnet, he's not a guy who's going to get you the explosive plays that Walker can get you. Walker is actually one of the top running backs in explosive plays, explosive rushes this year. In fact, Walker is on pace to way clear last year, where I think he even had fewer explosive rushes than Geno Smith. And that's not a stat you want. But this year, when he's had room, he's been able to move and get 15, 20-yard gains, 12-yard gains here and there. Charbonnet, not as consistent. Charbonnet's averaging 2.6 yards a carry, which is fullback territory. And as I think was said in the comments by Newgash, I believe, they lead the league in hits behind the line of scrimmage for no yards or a loss on the play. In Charbonnet's case, sometimes he can barrel forward, get you an extra yard. In Walker's case, sometimes he will get stopped at the line and then run backwards for 3 yards, which is where the frustration with Walker can be, because he never gives up on a play, or sometimes giving up might actually be a better thing to do. I am curious to see what they do with this rotation moving forward, because they almost never play Walker on 3rd down, because they clearly don't trust him to hold up in pass pro. And Charbonnet, if nothing else, is an excellent pass protecting back. But even that has its limits. I wish that for some downs they could consider going 21 personnel. Mm-hmm. Grubb did that a couple of times, but really only when it was 3rd or 4th and 1. But this ground game has had there we go. Somebody mentioned it. Soon. Yes, do it in 21 formation. Let's see some of that. But this running game has just been inconsistent. They've had good games, like the Pittsburgh game, or the Tampa Bay game unexpectedly, some sections of the Arizona game. But that Jaguars game was just straight bad. And a lot of that to me was the lack of execution along the offensive line. And we'll see how it goes against Houston, because that is a nasty defensive front you're dealing with. They've not been super stout against the run. Teams have been more tempted to pass against them, but they're nevertheless good enough because they're such a great defense. So this is a tough defense to play, whether against the pass or against the run. But after the bye week, when they're playing a bad defense like the Commanders, like that's the type of game where I want to see them be able to take control of the line of scrimmage.
It's actually really interesting here. I'm going to bring this one up on the screen, Mookie, and this is just off the running game a little bit, but talks about the O-line in a bit. Our O-line is still bottom 10 in true pass sets in obvious pass situations. The pass pro is good because of the play calling. It's true. We're not doing what we did last year, which is, I think, that's where we're seeing the benefit to this offensive line. If this offensive line was still running the same scheme as last year, where it was straight drop back all the time, it'd still be a disaster. And this is what I was saying all offseason. You heard me say it was, with the play action, with moving the pocket a bit and doing these things, it'll alleviate some of that stress on this offensive line until they can get it right. And I think that's why you maybe haven't seen a lot of that stuff. Like, look at JSN's 61-yarder this weekend, came off of play action again, right? Play action, set up, take your shot over the top. But let's talk a little bit more, Mookie. When I look at this offensive line, or actually, I'll say this last part on the offensive line, I should say, sorry, is I think they'll be shuffling. I think they're not done trying to get this right. I think if this will be a main focus for Mike McDonald and this coaching staff in the bye week. Because you can tell when Mike gets asked about it, he is still so frustrated. Like, I can't remember who asked it in his press conference. I guess it would have been Thursday's press conference or yesterday about the run game. And is it like, the running backs? And he goes, no, it's just execution. It comes down to execution. When Mike says and emphasizes the execution word, that's his legit word. That is one of his legit words. It is. If you hear Mike drill on execution, it is something that is driving him nuts, because he doesn't use it just willy-nilly about it. He's very particular on when he uses that term. We're not executing. Because that's something for him that drives him nuts. They coach it, they rep it. He wants execution. And as John Gruden would say in Hard Knocks, I want better bleeping execution. It's John Gruden would always say. But Mookie, let's talk about this. I kind of wanted to bring this up and get your opinion on it, because I wonder where we are both. What is going on at weak side linebacker? You brought up Drake Thomas earlier. We had what we thought was a weak side linebacker in Tyrese Knight going into this season. Now Drake Thomas is basically the starter. It kind of was confirmed now by Mike McDonald. We saw the limited reps, 2 of them all, when Drake Thomas got hurt in the Jags game. I have my theory on what's transpired. What's your theory on what's transpired at weak side linebacker?
I think that Thomas might not have been playing as well as we thought in his rookie year. It's just that he was a breath of fresh air for a rookie relative to watching Baker and Dotson flail about and just destroy any sense of gap integrity or rush lane integrity. But when it comes to Tyrese Knight, whether he's healthy or not, some of the same issues persist when he is in coverage, play action. Like, I think of that 49ers game, and he can't carry crossers. So yeah, I don't think he's got an issue as a poor tackler or anything. It might just be instincts where McDonald is not pleased with some of his decision making. Certainly the worst play I think he's made so far was a missed tackle, and that was the Jalen Warren catch that should have been a short gain and turned into a 65-yard game where almost the entire defense missed a tackle on him. But Drake Thomas, I think that teams have been picking on him, and better offenses will pick on him in coverage, but he seems to be a good blitzing threat because he's got 2 sacks already. I thought that Knight could be somebody who would be a good blitzing threat, but McDonald is very particular with his linebackers, as we saw with the necessitating the Roquan Smith trade a couple of years ago. I think it was his first year as Ravens defensive coordinator, and that totally transformed the Ravens defense to have a better linebacker in there than what they had. I forgot who he was replacing because you already had Patrick Queen there. But last year, Baker and Dotson, see you later. You get Ernest Jones, and then you bump Tyrese Knight to the starting job. But he only won the starting job really by default.
Yeah.
In the sense that the guy ahead of him wasn't getting it done. So we're just going to give Knights his opportunities. There wasn't really a competition for him per se to hold on to this starting spot, but it wasn't totally impossible for me to envision McDonald getting a little bit frustrated with Knights with some of the pass coverage issues. I think to me has been the main thing with him. But Thomas has done some things well enough. I think that he might be the quote unquote weak link of the defense, at least in the front seven. But you're not gonna even the best defenses are gonna have weak links per se. So if Thomas can just do his job well enough without being a scheme rewrites liability, then that's what we're going to see moving forward. It just gradually went from, all right, Tyrese is getting all these snaps, Drake's hardly in the game, to, all right, now they're splitting these snaps, to Tyrese is only in for special teams. So this went from a soft benching to just a full-on benching on defense. And I don't think it's totally unjustified the way that the first few weeks had gone. And if it's injury related, then, I mean, he's not showing up in the injury report, is he? Because they would be kind of obligated to put him on the injury report.
No, he's not showing up. The thing for me with the Tyrese Knight situation, Mookie, and this is kind of the thing that I've started to think more and more, because a lot of people wanted to go with, well, he had the injuries in camp, which we knew of. He had the knee, then he had the
illness,
undisclosed illness, whatever was going on. But the one thing for me that's different between last year's defense and this year's defense is the evolution of the playbook. Last year, what did we know happened at week 8 when they made their trades, or the trade deadline? They got, Tyrese got promoted, Dotson and Baker got shipped out, Jones got brought in. It was, okay, we're going to run our base packages. We cannot advance this defensive playbook because we don't understand what we're doing. So we're going to run all of our base stuff. Okay, cool. It worked during the back half of the season. Everything was good. The expectation was we're returning over 11 starters back to this defense that know it. We should start fast and be able to implement the stuff that Mike wants to. The blitz packages, the sub packages, all the other different things. I think what has transpired is Drake Thomas, and one thing Mike said in the press conference talking about was how smart of a player he is. He understands his assignments. He does his assignments flawlessly. Those are the things when you hear Mike talk about a player, it's the same kind of way he talked about Kobe Bryant. You don't need to be the star athlete. You don't need to be this. You need to do your job properly and understand what your job requires of you to do. I think Tyrese Knight is potentially struggling with the advances in this playbook, which leads to your point, the coverage issues too. He's not great in coverage. So, no, those 2 strikes against you. Yeah, you may be the physical better player than Drake Thomas, but Drake Thomas doesn't make nearly as many coverage issues, and he understands the playbook, and he's a good blitzer. That's a way out for Mike McDonald. I think that's where you're seeing this benching occur. Is just, I don't think they can trust Tyrese Knight to know what he needs to do every play, be in the right spot. And to your point about a weak link, if Drake Thomas is a weak link in the chain, if Tyrese Knight's in there, they may not be one chain that's connected from one end to the other at this point on the defense.
Yes. And we talk about processing speed for quarterbacks most of the time. Are you a good processor? Are you a bad processor? Are you a slow processor? If linebacker is to be considered the quarterback of the defense, I feel like maybe one of the things that McDonald sees and why he made this decision is that Knight is not the game is too fast for Tyrese in critical situations. And it's why we know that Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay both do one thing extremely well. If your linebackers aren't good enough, they're going to go at that guy over and over again. And how many years have we seen Shanahan and McVay completely undress Seattle's linebackers over the years? Couldn't do it with Ernest, in the last couple of seasons, but they could do it with a lot of other non-Ernest linebackers. And we saw it with Knight on opening day. He looked lost. So it doesn't mean he's not going to get his starting job back. It just means that for the moment, Thomas appears to be a better option. And obviously, the Pooh Paul edition might be one of those longer-term stashes when you think about next season.
Exactly what I was going to say, and we'll touch on that in a second here. Let's just do a quick little thing on the trade deadline. Obviously, it is coming up, Mookie. There's been some buzz. We've seen a couple reports come out that I think it was Barnwell put out one saying Seattle would trade Reek and a 5th for a Ringo and a 4th, and that one I was in the midst of having a drink and almost spat my drink out in laughter over that one because that one just made no sense. And then Tony Pauline came out with one on Sportskeeda saying Seattle, sources and that they're really interested in Devon Achane down there in Miami. And I was like, why? Well, they need an explosive running back. We have K9. If he gets in the open field, K9's just about as explosive. Like they're both injury prone too. It's not like, he's somewhat of a less injury prone running back than Kenneth Walker. And the Reek would be a part of it. And I just kind of went, yeah, no, this is clickbait again. Like none of the rumors I have seen come out about Seattle at all make sense to me. But what I will say is the fact that Seattle is involved in these rumors tells me that I think Seattle is in the market and they're looking and they may be making some additions.
Trading Reek away, I think we have to acknowledge is a distinct possibility. But for what Barnwell was suggesting, that is absolutely deranged. That
you want to make your cornerback room better.
Yeah, anybody in the comments who plays Madden, put that in try and do that trade in Madden right now. Tell me what the AI logic will tell you. Will spit out, because there's no way I would accept that trade. It is absolutely insane to trade a starting corner, your best outside corner, for a guy who's struggling to hold down a starting spot in Philadelphia. Has really never been good in the NFL. You're going to do a reclamation project in the middle of the season? No, that's something that a selling team would do. If Seattle was like 1-5, they would be probably thinking about trading Woolen. But even then, they wouldn't be doing it for Keely Ringo and to upgrade by 1 round in the draft on day 3. Insane trade. Tony Pauline's trade suggestion is completely nutsoid. I mean, on what planet have you looked at the Seahawks depth chart and go, I'm watching all of these offensive linemen struggle to maintain their blocks. What they need is another running back. So H&N's just going to get tackled faster.
No, though I like this. This is from Dan. He goes, Woolen is trade bait, in my opinion. They are willing to do it if they can rob someone. That's the way I see it too, is like, this is a situation where you're going to get, I don't know, Trey Hendrickson, or you're going to get an elite guard or something like that all of a sudden coming back in a trade if you give up Reek Woolen. Then there's a conversation. But the only report I've seen out there that I think holds some weight is Brady Henderson's. I think it came out after the Jaguars game. I could be wrong, but he put out that Seattle is looking to upgrade the cornerback room. That, to me, Brady is so dialed in with this team. That one I look at and I go, okay, I'm going to take a look, because, Rob Staten was on, 710 the other day doing his thing. And he brought up a really good point. He doesn't know if pass rusher, an elite pass rusher, is as high on Seattle's priority list for them as it is for the fans, because he goes, look at what they did to Jacksonville, a team that hadn't given up a lot of sacks. They got 7 of them that had, 33 pressures on 42 dropbacks. Bringing that, like they were fine. They were able to affect the passer. But he said weak side linebacker and corner are probably higher on Seattle's list. And I kind of, looking back on it, tend to agree a little bit with Rob there on that I think weak side linebacker and I think corner are the higher priorities for Seattle right now, because they probably look at their rotation going, hey, we get Derek Hall back. We're still going to be in good shape going forward.
Yeah, if they're going to trade Reek, I think you have to get another corner, because this Jacksonville game, as good as they played, as well as they played, some of the reason they were able to hold Jacksonville to 12 points is because the pass rush got home to spare the secondary its blushes, because it led to inaccurate throws to open receivers from Lawrence repeatedly. So it's asking a lot out of this current group. You're asking Josh Jobe and Kendrick and Shaq Griffin, if he gets called at the practice squad again, and Pritchett and so on and so forth, to effectively replace Reek, because I don't think you can play Spoon full-time outside a corner. And again, it would be an undersized room. So again, if they trade Reek, then I see would Denzel Ward be someone to target if the Browns are willing to listen? Yeah, my worry is the number of concussions he's had. So that's kind of like defensive Olave to me. But we'll see what the cornerback market looks like, because I haven't heard a lot of buzz as far as any other corners being on the market. So maybe Schneider can find his cornerback version of Quandre Diggs there. It's just that Reek Woolen wouldn't be Tedrick Thompson in this equivalent, because he's not that bad. But certainly he's the most prominent trade baits out there. We haven't even heard much about could Mafe get dealt, because he's another one whose contract is expiring. And that Jacksonville game, everybody was eating except him. So I'm just kind of wondering what they want to do on that front, because we can kind of cancel the Trey Hendrickson fantasy. Now that they've beaten Pittsburgh and they got a bit of an easier schedule coming up, and Flacco has been reborn for the 18th time now, they're not totally out of that division race. So they might not want to be doing all systems go. So the only person they might want to get rid of regardless is Cam Taylor-Britt, and he's been benched, and I would not want Cam Taylor-Britt on my team right now. So we kind of have to give it another week or two to figure out that bye week will mean so much as far as what movement we see, because we've been seeing a lot. We've been seeing more trades than usual this early in the season. So we might get a bit of a frenzy over the next couple of weeks.
Well, Mookie, let's kind of get into this. We'll get into this Texans preview. We'll look a bit ahead here. So first thing to do, let's talk about this injury report. I'll bring that up on the screen here so our viewers can see it as well. Just what today came out with as the injury report. So here it is. I can zoom in a little bit. I apologize. It's super small, everybody, but let's bring a little far there. There we go. That's better. Okay, so Derek Hall is out. Josh Jones is limited participant, so maybe he comes back this week. Who knows? DeMarcus Lawrence, injury rest, limited full. Great to see. DeMarcus Lawrence had a great kind of callback game in this one against the Jags. Julian Love was limited again today, but that's still a promising thing that he's making that trend from do not participate to limited. Nehemiah Pritchett was a full. Jaron Reed was a full. Leo was a full. And Devin Witherspoon is a full participant. I think we will see Spoon back in the lineup come Monday. Woolen, however, went from being full on Thursday to limited, so maybe a small setback in his concussion. Who knows? But Mookie, that's not a bad injury report going into a Monday night game, not a Sunday game.
Yeah, I'm assuming Witherspoon's going to play. I would personally hold Love out until the bye week, because the one thing with hamstring injuries is the risk of recurrence and then making it worse. Yeah. So I wouldn't be against just holding Love, play Okada again. Houston's got a better quarterback, and Houston's got a good quarterback and some receiving threats that I'm not too comfortable with Okada back there, but I don't think he'll burn the house down. But Woolen, I'm wondering about him going from full to limited. If he did have some sort of setback, or if they're taking it easy, because if he was a full participant, I'm wondering if he's really close to clearing concussion protocol. So other than that, it's a pretty favorable injury report that you could get even Witherspoon back, I think is great, because you're going to be dealing with Nico Collins for sure. And I hope that Woolen can come back so you can have Woolen and Spoon, and you can live with the safeties being back there, being Kobe and Okada. So it could be much worse. Everybody else, like if Leo's practicing and Jaron's practicing and they're getting vet day rests, then or veterans rest days, whatever you want to call it, that's a lot better than how many people they were missing last week. And they're not missing anybody key on offense right now, because Josh Jones is a swing tackle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're fine with the group they've got going there. So Mookie, let's take a look at this Texans defense. As I wrote, the real first test for Darnold and this offense, because I think the Texans actually have a very, very good NFL defense. And, just some stats for them right now. Their defensive, is kind of like they're going to be tough.
Yeah. They're what, second or third in DVOA, and they're number one in scoring. And I know they've had their bye, but still, they've only given up in 5 games 61 points. That's 12 a game. And it's not just beating up on what's left of the Ravens and shutting out a dismal Titans team. Shout out to Pete Carroll. He got to be responsible for the first in-season head coach firing. But anyway, 10 points against Baltimore, nothing against the Titans, whatever. They lost to Jacksonville, but they only gave up 17 points, and they deliberately let Jacksonville score a touchdown at the end. So that was kind of a deceiving 17th that they gave up. 20 against the Buccaneers. That was their worst performance, giving up 20 points, and it came down to the line, down to the wire. They gave up a touchdown with a few seconds left. And they lost the Rams game, but they only gave up 14. So this defense is holding up its end of the bargain. The offense has been the thing that's held them back. So, yes, this defense will be the first real test for Darnold, because you got not just Derek Stingley, but you also got, I think you got Jalen Petrie, right? So you've got two. And Stingley's one of the top corners in the game. You know they're going to be keyed in on JSN. So this could be one of those games where Smith and Jigba isn't lighting lighting up the box score. So I'm very curious to see how this offensive line also holds up against a front that's got Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. So they've had a good schedule thus far in terms of opposing defenses, but to date, I think this is by far the best pass rushing front that they're going to face. So it is going to be huge. It's going to be paramount importance for them to get the ball out quickly. And they've had no issue with that throughout the season, but I just worry that Houston also knows that they're going to get the ball out quickly and maybe start sitting on some shorter routes that they've been using throughout the year to move the chains. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This could be one of those classic, it's a low scoring game, but it's actually good to watch.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So like couple stats here. So just the Texans pass rush rate is 37%, which is 5th in the NFL. Like they're getting after the quarterback. Will Anderson Jr. has 5 sacks, 21 pressures, and he has a PFF pass rush grade of 87.3. Like he's one of the best pass rushers, young pass rushers right now in the NFL. But you look at it, like they're in, EPA per play as a defense, they're 4th. Pass their top 5. Now rush their middle of the pack, which is interesting. I think Seattle can run the ball if they go gap power and inside zone schemes outside of the wide zone. They might be able to get some actual momentum going in the run game. Their success rate allowed is a 40.9. But here's the thing, completion rate allowed is 58.8, and they've only allowed 3 passing TDs this season, to my understanding, at the stats that I'm looking at currently. This is not going to be an easy game. And to your point, Mookie, this is going to be a game where I think it's going to come down to our defense getting us extra possessions, because I don't know if the offense is going to just be able to go down the field with ease. They're going to have to steal a couple possessions here for us in this game. But, let's flip on to the other side, Mookie, and let's look at this offense versus our defense. CJ Stroud under siege. Now, the Texans offense has kind of done this all season. They've had an up, and let's be honest, the Ravens game, as much as some people want to go, oh man, they put 40, the Ravens are a shamble of what they normally are. That was, they were missing Kyle Hamilton. They were missing so many guys on their defense that I just kind of look at it and go, yeah, okay, you're playing a practice squad team. Like, you should put up 44 points. Like, congratulations. Well done, Houston. You did your job. The question I've got is, do you expect to see Seattle come out? If Spoon's back, do you think you'll see more of this early down, neutral, blitz stuff that we kind of saw in this Jacksonville game from Seattle? Because I know people say, well, Seattle didn't blitz any more than they normally do. When that game was close, they were actually bringing more pressures. But once they got their lead, Mike went back to his normal 4-rush simulated stuff. So do you think we'll see that again versus CJ Stroud at home?
You know why I think they'll do it? Because this will be hopefully, the first full game of Spoon and Eamon.
Yeah.
Now you got 2 secondary players who can be potent blitzers. So I think that they are going to blitz a little bit more. Frankly, this offensive line is bad enough that they could probably win with 4 a lot, just as they did in the Jacksonville game. A lot of their wins and their sacks came with 4-man rushes. But you were about to say something. Go ahead.
I'm going to say something here, Mookie. You can't be speaking like that about the OG GOAT of left guards, Lincoln Tomlinson, holding it down in Houston, man. You got to give that man some respect.
Well, the only thing he's holding right now is a seat on the bench, because they put Juice Scruggs in for him after, what was it? It might have been the Baltimore game. So credit to Lakin for being an Iron Man and not missing snaps. But certainly when he was in Seattle, I was going, can somebody else make him miss snaps? Like, he doesn't have to be injured. I just need to have him not in the game. And Houston found out pretty soon. I don't understand Houston's thought process with rebuilding that O-line. You trade Tunsil away and you sign Lakin Tomlinson and Ed Ingram. And then you call it good. And then they just traded Cam Robinson a few weeks back. Like, what was the point of even bringing him in? So they paid several million for a few games played. So this Texans offense is just not consistent. Now, I think CJ Stroud, when given time, is a dangerous quarterback, especially when thrown to Nico Collins. But guys like Higgins and Noel are going to have some time to adjust to the NFL. And I think Noel got a touchdown in the Ravens game, and Higgins might have scored in that same game too. But I think I was very high on both of them, and that Seattle could have drafted either one of them. But I'm curious to see, again, this running game of Houston. Nick Chubb has been able to turn back the clock occasionally. Mixon is not healthy right now, but the person I want to keep an eye on is Woody Marks, and I liked him at USC. He could be a threat as not just a runner, but as a pass catcher.
Yes.
So Seattle's done a pretty good job of limiting, other than McCaffrey, really, and one Jalen Warren catch, of limiting those receivers out of the backfield, limiting running backs as receiving threats. So that's going to be one way to alleviate the pressure, I think, off Stroud, is to hit quick passes, quick check down to the backs. And that could be Chubb, it could be Woody Marks, but I think that this is still advantage Seattle defensively. I feel like they've got the secondary to lock Houston's non-Nico Collins guys down. And if they limit Nico Collins, I don't know how this Houston offense can function consistently. And this run defense, which I thought would be at risk of falling off a bit, even in the Jacksonville game, it has held up remarkably well. I think they lead the league in fewest explosive rushing plays allowed. So I think that they'll still be pretty good stopping the run, which means that Houston could be one-dimensional. And if Houston can be one-dimensional and Seattle has a lead, then maybe it won't be a close game. But I still expect it to be because of Houston's defense. But the unit I'm most confident in for Monday night's matchup is Seattle's defense, even if it's just Witherspoon back, for sure. Seattle's defense against Houston's offense.
Agreed. And I got to give John here a pretty good nickname here. Lakin the Turnstile Tomlinson, I think, is a fantastic nickname. Well done, John. That is gold right there. Yeah, Mookie, I agree with you. I think Seattle's defense here, especially on the interior pressure side of things, with Jaron Reed, with Byron Murphy, Big Cat, they should wreak havoc on the interior of this Texans O-line. And the one thing we know about CJ Stroud, he's mobile, but he's getting pretty old, and he's already admitted to getting older means I'm getting slower. So, if you can get that interior pressure and collapse his pocket from the inside, I think it's going to be really difficult for this Houston Texans team to move the ball. And yes, Nick Chubb's looked good at different points this year, but you can tell he's nowhere near the back he was in the second, or third or fourth. I can't even remember how many it is now. Knee injuries for him it's remarkable. He is back out on the field playing, truthfully. And I give him a lot of credit for that and going through that process of getting back, but he's not the same back he once was. So no, I agree. I think, if Seattle can put Stroud under siege, they're going to have a really good chance of winning this football game. But the thing, for me, Mookie, is let's talk about some of these key battles to win in this game. Who for you, or what maybe player, who do you think are the key battles in this game that need to be won from Seattle?
I think it's got to be JSN and Stingley as the most obvious one. Because if JSN gets locked down, then how will Seattle adjust? I think they can adjust play action to tight end, get the tight ends involved more. And Houston's got good linebackers with Al-Shaair and Toe, but what are you going to do if Smith and Jigba is not the focal point? Because in the Arizona game, they were actually moving the ball pretty well in the first half, with Smith and Jigba not even getting a target. They were throwing it to A.J. Barner. They were throwing it occasionally to Cooper Kupp. So let's see what happens against a better defense in case Smith and Jigba is not a huge factor. But then the other key battle to me, or I guess plural, would be Cross and Lucas going up against Hunter and Anderson, respectively. Because Cross has, for the most part, played well. Lucas is not. Don't think Lucas has played his best ball. And I'm wondering if he's, with his body transformation, lost some of his play strength, especially in his upper body. But, yeah, basically, if we start to see the tackles losing, and that's Anderson and Hunter are feasting, we could see the passing game sputter a bit more than we have at any other point in the season. And that could mean sacks of Darnold, or turnover throws or turnover-worthy plays, if you will, out of Darnold that he's been so good at limiting. We just have to acknowledge this is going to be an extremely tough matchup, because this Houston defense, which I thought was a little overrated last year because they rated highly on a lot of defensive metrics, but they were bleeding explosive plays. Well, now they're mostly limiting those explosive plays and also keeping the point total low. So this is why I'm looking forward to this matchup. It's going to have that old school Legion of Boom era feel. Like, it's not San Francisco, Seattle, Harbaugh, and Carroll, but it kind of has that feel of we're going to see a lot of hard hitting. We're going to see some big plays on both sides. But if an offense is going to break through in this game, I think it'll be Seattle's offense ultimately, because maybe it's possible that JSN really is that dude and he can get a couple on the best corners in the league.
I can't argue with any of that. The only other name I'd throw in there is Walker versus these Texans linebackers. Can he actually, get through that and cause some havoc there? But Mookie, I'm going to give the 3 keys to victory on my end here. Number 1 goes exactly to your point. Protect the pocket. Don't let this game get out of hand in the interior. Let Sam Darnold operate. Let him get rid of the ball quickly. The more that they can keep him clean and upright. And for a point, the Texans had that pressure rate of about 37% of the time. Seattle's pass blocking rate as a group is about a 62 if you look at PFF. Keep him clean. Allow Darnold to play with tempo. Get the ball out of his hand quickly. And I think that also comes down to Kubiak. Roll him out. Get him outside the pocket on some play action boots. Just give him some easy throws. Get the confidence going. See how they're going to take away or try to take away JSN. And see if you can find those running lanes. But the first thing is keep your pocket clean. Protect the quarterback. Number 2 for me, collapse the pocket on Stroud. We just talked about this. That interior of that Texans O-line should be a feasting ground for Leo, for Byron Murphy, for Jaron Reed. Even Brandon Peely should be able to, get some push in there. If you can collapse that pocket on Stroud, it's going to cause problems. And right now, Seattle's pressure rate is 2nd in the NFL at almost 40%. They are just feasting on offensive lines. Let that be the main thing. And the third one for me, feed JSN and Kenneth Walker. When either scores so far this year, Seattle is 4-0. That is a pretty good stat. When either one of those two guys score, Seattle's 4-0. JSN's practically scored in every game. I think he didn't score in the 49ers game, or I'm wrong. No, he didn't. He didn't score in the 49ers game. So use the quick passing game. And the other thing, too, try and see if they can open up those backside cutbacks for K9 on this run. That's something I think could really be effective against this interior part of this Houston Texans team. Not so much the front side. Let let Kenneth Walker put his foot in the ground and get backside on some of these runs. And, that to me are the 3 keys for this game. What about yourself?
My first key, and I've used this a couple of times before, but I'm going to keep using it. Turnover battle, at best neutral. Or at worst neutral, at best you win it. Because they were clean last week against Jacksonville, a team that leads the league in takeaways. But they have not had a clean, turnover-free game at home since the Drew Lock start against Philadelphia. That's 2 years ago. They have turned it over at least once every home game of the McDonald era up to this point. And they've been prone to fumbling. Darnold has been really good at protecting the ball, but he's had 2 critical turnovers at home. And we have seen JSN even have a big fumble against San Francisco. Take care of the dang ball. And please, can week 7 be the week they finally force a fumble? It's the defense has done so many good things, and somehow, some way, they have forced it. I don't know if it's just not emphasized, that the peanut punch is not emphasized by Mike McDonald, but it's got to happen at some point. So they've been their own worst enemy at times when they commit ill-time penalties, not volume of penalties, or they turn it over at an inopportune time. Those have been 2 areas that have been hurting them throughout the year, even in wins, or at least limiting them even in victories and hurting them in actual losses. Second key to victory to me is going to be the offensive line holding up against Houston's defensive line. And that's not just the O-linemen winning their blocks. It's also Clint Kubiak going up against his dad's former team and out-scheming them, out-thinking Matt Burke and DeMeco Ryans as far as what Houston could do with really just 4. But, they are a tough defense to deal with because they just have you thinking so much. And I believe that somebody mentioned in the comments, it might have been Dan Chu, that's one thing with Kubiak is, unlike last year, if they're going to run weak side, they're going to play action weak side. It's not, hey, we're play actioning weak side. We don't run weak side. So there's a level of there's a proper marriage of the run game and the play action game. I think they got to use play action heavily here. Test those linebackers especially. Roll Sam Darnold out. Use the tight ends more. Use Barner more especially, and get Elijah Royal involved. Do anything really to take the pressure off of this O-line so that they're not in obvious passing situations where Anderson and Hunter can lick their lips like a werewolf in a Looney Tunes cartoon. Mm-hmm. So, and I think the third key will be really just on the flip side, going on the defensive side of the ball, take Nico Collins out of the game. Not injure him literally. I'm not asking for any hits. And then maybe on Seahawks syndicate, since we are the mobsters. But if you can limit the big plays to Nico Collins, I think that hugely impacts their receiving game. Because again, Higgins and Noel are rookies, and Christian Kirk's a veteran, but he's not exactly playing at a high level anytime recently. So, and also containing CJ Stroud secondarily to talk about the passing game. Stroud has had bad habits, I think, as far as his pocket management. He can drift into sacks from clean pockets. Him talking about he's getting old. Well, so are all of us, but you're too young to be saying I'm getting old. You're not getting slower. You're just in a league where other dudes are as faster, if not faster than you. So you're not playing against future State Farm insurance salesmen like in college or high school. You're playing against NFL athletes. That's what's been happening. But yeah, I think that limiting Collins is going to be the number one key. I'm not worried about the run defense as much as I am. Make sure that their best weapon can't beat you.
No, exactly. And so, Mookie, last thing we'll finish up here before we get into the Q&A here and some of the great comments and chat, questions we've had. What is your score prediction for this game?
I'm going to go with something like 20, similar to last week, either 17-13 or 20-13, where there'll be enough explosive plays from Seattle to get into good scoring position and finish off drives, but there will be enough mistakes and some lulls in the offense for them to not pull away. And that Houston will have maybe one or two good drives, but just like last week, I think that this defense, I actually think it was a big deal last week that the defense sealed the deal. I mean, technically the offense did with the Barner catch, but the point is the preceding possessions, Jacksonville had a chance to tie 2-3 times, didn't allow any points, didn't even allow them to get in a field goal range, let alone a tying touchdown. So given their struggles in late game situations against Tampa, against Arizona, against San Francisco, it was significant to me that even an undermanned defense finished the job against Jacksonville. And I think they're going to do that again against Houston. And I might have done this as a bold prediction before, not on this show, but in an article. I think that they're going to get a big turnover late off of Stroud, off of somebody in the last few minutes of the game, and that'll be the winner. And that will energize this crowd and go, all right, this defense stepped up at home, and they gave us one of those huge plays, kind of like Julian Love against Philadelphia the last time they had a Monday night home game. Like the defense can shut the door with a play that will get the crowd energized. I think that's going to be how it ends with Seattle winning. I'll lean towards 20-13.
Okay, and for me, I'm going to go 23-14 Seattle over Houston. My thing, to your point, I think Seattle's got the defensive edge in this game. I think they're going to fluster Stroud. They're going to take away his quick passing game, and I think they're going to wreak havoc on that interior offensive line for the Texans. On the flip side, I think this might weirdly sound weird to most. I think there's a chance Seattle's running game clicks a little bit in this game. And I think they're able to run interiorly in between the tackles better than they have, and K9 gets going. I'm going to make my bold prediction on this. Wait. Boy Mafe gets 2 sacks in this game.
That would be something. You know what? Along those same lines, I think we need to give Chen and Nwosu more credit for the fact that he's got 4 sacks, and he has filled in nicely in Hall's absence. Really, he's had to take more snaps. Especially in our comment section, meaning the field goals comment section or the field goal social media account, or even some people in the chat in this show, they've been banging on and on again. Yeah, Chen is just going to get hurt walking out of bed or getting up out of bed. Well, he stayed healthy. He's not playing nearly the snap count as he did a couple years back, but he's contributing. And he's second on this team in sacks behind Byron Murphy. He's your leading sacker and edge rusher at the edge rushing position. So I think this is a big deal that Chen is playing the way he's playing.
Agreed. And so let's get into some of these Q&As, Mookie, before we get out of here tonight. We've been on this for almost 90 minutes here. So let's get into the first one. It's I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Super excited to get Spoon, Love, and Woolen back. Would love to go into the bye with another win. Totally agree. Yeah. Going in 5-2 is kind of what I said after they lost to the 49ers when I had them going potentially 6-1 into the bye, but I actually had them going 5-2. I had them losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Jags, so they surprised me out of that. But I think that'd be great going in 5-2. John McGrath, our run game really needs to improve because if they run like they didn't against the Jags, they will be in trouble. I think he says if they run like they did against the Jags, they'd be in trouble.
Well, they didn't run the ball well, so maybe that's what he did.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
against better teams, yeah, that could be an issue because at some point, teams may not be willing to just stack the box relentlessly and respect Sam Darnold and JSN a little bit more. Or maybe go, hey, if they're still not also winning against 6-man fronts or 7-man fronts, then we're going to play coverage a little bit more and take away JSN, maybe do some bracketing. But yeah, the run game has to get better. It's been not terrible, but it's been inconsistent.
John also comes in with, I feel like this could be the perfect game to use our tight ends for big gains if they're able to take away JSN. Some we've talked about, yeah, that they definitely need to, find a way to get Arroyo going more frequently in this offense. For the guy that they went out and got, they should have more usage for him. One of our moderators in the chat, Ian Victor, I have a feeling there's going to be some shuffling in the O-line and some trades during the bye week. Yeah, I'm getting the feeling on a little bit of both of that. I think Olu could be the starting center coming out of the bye, and I think the Hawks are going to make a trade or two. Mookie, what about yourself?
Yeah, the only change in the O-line I think would be Sundell for excuse me, that's a sneeze there. Again, these changes are nothing to sneeze at, but Sundell for Olu, and then right guard. I don't think Bradford's getting benched. He hasn't been bench worthy, and there hasn't been any indication that change is going to happen. And then trades, I think that they will make like moderate level, middling level trades. No huge splashes. If they do make a huge splash, that's an example of John Schneider knowing he's got a big contract extension, wanting to take a swing for the fences now while Darnold is still on the contract that he's on.
Correct. John comes back. Why haven't they activated Paul yet? Is it just he isn't understanding the defensive scheme yet? Because I think he'd be a big help at weak side linebacker. I think we kind of touched on this. I think he's a long-term stash and potential starter or competing for starting reps next year at that spot. They may very well activate him after the bye, though, because that's roughly when they brought in Tyrese Knight last year, was after week 8.
Yeah, I think that this is a long-term play. I wouldn't just throw him in there into the defense, the defensive lineup just yet. Otherwise, they could have just done that sooner. So and also you got other guys coming back soon, like Riley Mills. You got to probably activate soon. To be determined on Christian Haynes. I don't really care whether or not Jonathan Hankins comes back at this point because they don't.
I don't think he is. I'm reserved to the point of he's not.
And then Coutts is coming back too. So I don't know if there's room for Paul at the moment.
John also comes in with rest in peace to Ace, the greatest guitarist ever. Space Ace forever from Kiss. Yeah, that's unfortunate. All the good musicians are starting to pass away from back in that day when music was really, really at a forefront and excellent. So
yeah.
What else do we got in here? Ian Victor, I predict Thomas will be weak side linebacker going forward, and Pooh gets activated. Dan comes in with give Patrick O'Connell a chance. He can actually zone drop. As far as run game, if he dies, he dies.
Ivan Drago.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a good one. What else do we got? K-Soon comes in, I guess, with our 3 keys. No need to get in our own way is our weekly theme. Yep, agreed. Like this team really, if they shoot themselves in the foot, is the way they generally stop themselves. This is a good one from John. If they do trade for an O-line player, Mookie, would you rather have them go get a right guard or a center?
Center is more important to me in the long term. Even with the 2 guys that they have on there now, it's paramount. It's hugely important in Kubiak and Benton's scheme to have a center that is valuable. And like Sundell was better than Connor Williams, but just by default because he can actually snap the ball without it going wayward. But some of those cool reach blocks we were seeing him do in preseason against backups are not really happening against starters going full throttle. So I am wondering if they might look at a center. I think that if they make a trade, it could be for a guard more than a center, but maybe not a guard who's going to start right away.
John comes in with would Mafe getting a few sacks make him a better trade option?
A few sacks? I mean, the trade's deadline's in 2 weeks. I would appreciate 1 sack.
Yeah, at this point, I can't understand what's gone on with him and just the decrease in productivity.
Yeah, he is still a good tackle in the backfield, can sniff out screens. He's not a bad player, but he is, as I said on Seahawks Aftermath in the chat, kind of like a more the luxury brand Darrell Taylor at this point.
Yeah, he really is. And it's, making it more interesting, that conversation between him and Derek Hall on who gets paid next. So appreciate all the comments, guys, and the questions in there. That was great. But Mookie, we're going to get out of here. So what do you have coming up on field goals and that people should be having an eye out for?
Well, I'll tell you what just went up today. Griff Sturgeon, friend of the show, friend of field goals, host of the Seattle Overload podcast with Matty F. Brown. He just did a guest column over at Field Goals on Nick Eamon-Warri's performance against the Jaguars. Now, if you know Griff, he was a bit of a skeptic of Eamon-Warri and his college tape. And even in this article, he does notice some of the low points, things that you might not see on the game footage on the television broadcast, but he has praise for him for a lot of other things. So it's not Eamon-Warri hate. This is just a down the line assessment of how he performed against Jacksonville. You can read it on Field Goals now. We'll have a game preview by Alejandro Castro on Saturday for this Texans game. I'll do my 5 predictions for this game Monday morning. And we're going to take it easy on Sunday. We're not playing Sunday, so you know what that means, folks. Red zone all day for me.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I will be on a ferry over to Vancouver Island to coach a football game on Sunday. But over here, guys, tomorrow I will be over on Dan Vienz's channel. We're doing his new sub-show segment called Ask Coach Bryce. And so come on over there. Any football questions you guys got, whether it comes to scheme, to personnel, to concepts, whatever, fire them in the chat. Me and Dan will sit there, and Dan will give them to me, and I'll answer them the best of my ability. And then outside of that, we've got another Hawks Film Lab coming out, which will be talking about the third down conversions for the Seahawks and why they've kind of been hit and miss on the success of that throughout the season. And then obviously Monday. So 2 things Monday. We will have a post-game show that'll hit on Tuesday night. It'll come out on Tuesday because on Monday, I will be doing color commentary with Brandon Kane of the Hawks Nest on his live watch party of the game. So if you guys are interested in that and me doing color and Brandon being your announcer while you guys watch the game, come on over there, put your questions in the chat and stuff like that, and we will answer them the best during the time of that broadcast. So that's kind of the stuff that's coming up over here on the Hawks eye. Outside of that, guys, appreciate all of you and everyone for being in the chat tonight. Mookie, let's try and sync this up. Let's see if we can do it. On the count of 3, we'll do a Go Hawks. 1, 2, 3. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Oh, that was horrible.